Now that we're more familiar with all of the components that make up our network, it is important to understand how to calculate the expected bandwidth requirements for each device connected to our system. The first question to ask before starting a bandwidth or storage calculation is, which codec is my camera streaming video in? We previously talked about the differences between frame-based encoding and sequence-based encoding. The way we calculate bandwidth for each of these is also different. For motion JPEG, the two main inputs needed in order to calculate bandwidth are image size, which is commonly measured in kilobytes, and frame rate, which is also referred to as frames per second. We will be using the airport image seen on the right for our sample calculation. In this example, our camera has an average image size of 120 kilobytes and a frame rate of 6 frames per second. We need to multiply those two numbers together in order to know the total number of kilobytes that are sent per second, which equals 720. Next, we need to break this calculation down even further. Bandwidth is typically measured in megabits per second. Currently, our math has been working with kilobytes. We need to convert our bytes into bits before we can continue with the calculation. We know there are 1024 bytes in a kilobyte and 1024 kilobytes in a megabyte. We need to change our 720 kilobytes into bytes, and we do this by multiplying by 1024, which gives us a total of 737,280 bytes. Next, we need to convert our bytes into bits. There are 8 bits in a byte, so our 737,280 bytes equal 5,898,240 bits. The last step is getting this large number into a more workable, usable number for our application. In order to do that, we need to convert our total bits into megabits. This is done by using some very simple math. We know there are 1,000 bits in a kilobit and 1,000 kilobits in a megabit. So we simply need to take our 5.8 million bits, divide by 1,000 to get to kilobits, and divide by 1,000 once more to get our final megabit per second calculation. The final result is 5.9 megabits per second. This is how much bandwidth our one camera will consume. When using H.264 or MPEG-4 for video streaming, the calculation is simplified. In this example, we simply need the bit rate, which is a value that can be obtained either from the camera manufacturer directly or within Milestone software. This number is also typically represented in kilobits per second, and we can quickly convert that to megabits by dividing by 1,000, which gives us a final bandwidth throughput requirement for this camera of 0.4 megabits per second.